through it. Um, I've got Casey here with Green Tech. Casey, do you want to is there anything you want to say before we get started?
I just to thank you guys for being here today. What I do here at Green Tech, I do marketing and communication, so post more things for you guys, the installers, and just provide everything that you guys need from us. Sales team, a lot more events like this.
Yeah, awesome. And it says a lot about you guys. I think just the fact that you're here, that you guys care about being certified and being educated, and you want to do right by your customers. So, could we have just maybe everybody do a quick introduction, just who you are, company, and your position there? And I know some of you have food in your mouth, so Rafael, do you mind starting? Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Rafael.
Hi, my name is Giovanni Moran. I'm working for Solar Power.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hey everyone, Mike Garcia with Urban Solar. I'm the commercial sales guy. Came to get a closer look at the battery. Like I told Rick, we've already quoted it. We like the product a lot.
Thank you. Awesome. Yeah, thank you. And Marlon's done HomeGrid before. You've done a few installs, so familiar with it. Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Will, VP of Operations for Genesis Solar. We had the opportunity to do, we have an off-grid trailer that we use at the mobile office for our commercial sites. And we did it completely with the HomeGrid system, and it works great. So,
yeah, I'll have to come see that. Yeah, that's awesome.
Working with Solar as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for being here. Casey, would you mind just hitting the next for me, and I'll just point at you when I'm ready for it. Let's see. I might have to click on the thing, and then there we go. Okay, I'll just go from there. So, as an agenda for today, we'll do kind of the certification, which, by the way, you all will be certified for being here, is two parts, really. First of all, there's a sales training, if you will, and more of a discussion on value props, the selling points, the product catalog, how to talk about HomeGrid with homeowners and clients, and just the way that we hope that you would pitch us, and maybe some ammo for you guys as you try and sell. Who here, by raise of hand, is on the sales side? Really kind of you two, and then Will, sorta. Yeah, and then raise your hand if you're more on the install side or engineering. Yeah, okay, thanks. So, part of this will be sales. I think it's good to know, but then the second half is more install, like how to actually put the thing together, just so, step tips and tricks, that kind of thing. And it'll be primarily focused on the Stack series, which is 95% of what we sell right now. And we'll talk about our commercial applications. We'll talk about our 208 volt application for small commercial, which I know many of you are interested in. And at the very end, I like to do just a little install practice with the demo unit. And we make a little competition out of it where we just stack it up as quick as you can and commission it. And so the winner gets like a bunch of swag or something. We'll figure it out. Okay. All right. Let's keep going. Get comfortable, settle in. Please eliminate any distractions, like put your phone on silent if you can, dial in, and then ask questions if you have any. Okay, keep going. Okay, so jumping into the sales training, keep going. The first thing to understand about HomeGrid is we've, as you guys know, have set the standard for full home backup. And I know a lot of companies are coming to the table with full home backup. Tesla just released their Powerwall 3, which is getting there, and it, for many homeowners, can be full home backup. I know Franklin likes to push the idea of full home backup, where before, it's kind of interesting. It was like batteries, it looked like were designed for really like time of use in California with like small capacity and small output. Like you look at what Enphase came out with in 10 or 2015 when they released their first battery, and it was 5 kilowatt hours, had, still is like 3.84 kilowatts of continuous power. It's not really designed to back up your AC unit. And that's where we saw an opportunity in the market to come in and provide something that could actually give homeowners what they are asking for, and small businesses. Let's keep going. So Lithion, just so you guys have an idea on the sales side, how to talk about us, is a 25-year battery manufacturer. So when you come to the table with your homeowners with HomeGrid, you're coming to the table with a company that's outlived our warranty. And we've been around for 25 years manufacturing batteries for all sorts of applications. So not only do we do small commercial and residential storage, we also do batteries for the military, for medical applications, for robotics. So some things you can tout with homeowners and your clients is, hey, this is the same company that did the Spot robot, which is that weird looking Boston Dynamics robot thing. They did the battery for the railgun. They did the battery for the recent Rise of the Resistance Disneyland ride. We did the battery in that. So all sorts of different things you guys can talk about that add some validity to who we are. And I hope it helps you guys out. We are owned by TriWest and Koch Industries. The big name you can drop is, hey, these guys are backed by Koch Industries. Like, they're not going anywhere. So just some selling points for you. Let's keep going. We are US based as well. So HomeGrid's headquarters is in Las Vegas. We were at SPI in September. We had a bunch of people come by our place, if you were there. And then, we've just got two 80,000 square foot facilities with a full tech support team. I hope you guys have had good experiences. If you have, call our tech support. They do answer the phones. They pick up, and they're available to answer your calls. And then what's neat too is we're going to start manufacturing LFP cells. We've actually started already in Vegas. So we're one of the only battery companies that is working on US manufacturing. By Q2 this year, we will be assembling that product here in the US. And our hope is that we qualify by the end of this year for that extra 10% that you can add as a tax credit, right? For US made products. So Lithion has different brands. There's Gridbox, which is more, I won't talk about them today, but they're like megawatt hour solutions. There's Avid, which is like medical. And then there's Valence, which is, they're in like golf carts and all sorts of things. So keep going. You guys have any questions on any of that? Okay, cool. All right, so product catalog. I'll touch on all these. We've got our stack series. We've got heated modules, high voltage BMS, outdoor case, bus bars for the Solarc 15K, which is really important to understand that, and then the HomeGrid Cube. So we'll get into all those things, and I'll just touch on all of them briefly. So let's go into first the stack series. So this is our bread and butter. This is what we sell the most of. We also sell a small compact series battery, but we're bringing that back. We don't have inventory right now. The stack series is going in on commercial and residential sites right now. The selling points that I would highlight with you guys today are first, chemistry, LFP, which, as you guys know, is a little heavier, but it provides way more safety and longevity in terms of just the chemistry. It's completely safe. We've actually, in Vegas, being from Vegas in a desert environment, we go out and we shoot guns. So we shot that thing, the actual battery, with a 50 cal, and nothing happened to it. And you guys can look up tests on YouTube. You can look up a nail puncture test. You can look up NMC versus LFP nail puncture test, and you'll see what happens when you puncture an LFP battery. It's like nothing's going to happen. There's no thermal runaway at all with LFP. And so that's what you see. Like Tesla just switched to LFP. Enphase currently has LFP, and just a lot of groups are transitioning to that chemistry. The next highlight is output, and I'll show some numbers on this versus our competitors, but we are 14.4 kilowatts of continuous power with a 24 kilowatt surge. That's once you're up to 4 modules. That is our specs on one battery. That's 300 amps of continuous power with a 500 amp surge. So pretty insane for how big it is. Each module is 4.8 kilowatt hours. You can stack 2 to 8 of them. So 9.6 to 38.4 kilowatt hours in a single stack. But beyond that, you can parallel 15 of those in parallel. They all have to be even heights. So if you did like 4 of them, they'd all have to have even modules. So 5 stacks of 8 or 5 modules of 6 with 6 of them in parallel. It doesn't matter what you do, it just has to be even. So it's up to 576 kilowatt hours. Has a Lego-like form factor. Many of you guys probably seen this, but you guys will get to test this out for yourself today. But it's literally as easy as, if this will come off, just stacking like Legos. So there's no, literally is how, these are demo batteries, so they're empty, but it's like a male-female connection between each module. Some of you have had experience with it, but they're about 100 pounds each in real life. I'm not that strong. And then the BMS just stacks on top. And this is where your connections will be right here on the side to connect to the inverter. So the battery terminals are on that side. So 30-minute install, that all said, just for the battery or less, and then easy to upgrade as well. All right, so let's keep going. Yeah.
You say section weighs 100 pounds.
Right.
You need special equipment to hold these batteries, or just the way?
Yeah, just 2 people. Yeah, or 1 person if you're strong enough. But yeah, you don't need any special equipment or a lift or anything. Yeah. The way we ship it is this, and this come in one box, these 2 gray pieces, and then each module comes in its own box. Yeah. So as far as the components go, just the terminology so you guys understand how to kind of speak towards it. We call this top piece the BMS, battery management system. It's a really smart component, has the ability to manage temperature, balance the cells, provide software updates. There's a lot that we do. And then it's also neat how it shows for the customer the state of charge, but also the state of health. So you guys actually have an understanding of how, after 5 years, the battery has degraded. It will show that on the screen. So a lot of other batteries don't even give you that information, but we do. Each module, we just call a battery module, not to be confused with a solar module or a PV solar module, and then base stand is about 7 inches off the ground. Cool. Okay, so here's just a visual of all the configurations for a single stack and their kilowatt hours. One thing to note on these numbers is we do recommend, like I was talking to earlier, an 80% depth of discharge, just to prolong the life of the battery. 85% is fine too. So that said, when you sell this to your customer, understand you're selling them probably 80% of what is listed here. And you might want to add an extra module just to, account for that. So keep that in mind. Casey, will you hit the next one? Thanks. Our most common paired inverter with solar or with HomeGrid is solar. And so there's a lot of flexibility on the battery side. And I think this is a huge selling point for your customers, is there's this ability to upgrade, and there's this, we can get to exact needs, but then we can also get to the exact needs of the customer with the inverters. The 5K through the 15K, these are primarily residential, right? And then their 30K and 60K inverter are commercial. The 30K is a 208 volt native, and the 60K is 480 volt native. So for you guys in the commercial space, I'll speak towards those in a minute, but what you need to understand is with the 30K and 60K, we will need to use our high voltage BMS. So that BMS right there is not compatible with a 30K and 60K. You do need to use our high voltage BMS in those situations. Okay. Cool. So here's some just installs. I mean, this is Bahamas. This is a full island backed off grid. These are 6 Solarc 15Ks, I think, or 12Ks. And then this is 280 kilowatt hours of storage. You guys can see they're all even, right? So if you do anything like that, you just need to keep them even. You can upgrade this system. Like they could have left room and you could add a module, right? And you could upgrade this down the road, but you'd have to add a module to each system or each stack, right? Here's some other installs. That top one is our most common residential install. That might even be in Florida. That's a Solarc 15K with 4 modules. That's like full home backup. Like that right there, AC unit, everything, completely backed up. They don't need a critical loads panel at all because the Solarc 15K has a 200 amp pass through. So if they just have a 200 amp main service panel, no critical loads panel, you're just going to feed that right into the 200 amp panel, and the whole thing is can be possibly backed up, right? So this is another 6,000 square foot home, 2 15Ks, and they did 3 8 stacks, and then that far right one is a off-grid cabin. So lots of flexibility. Like this is like, I would consider that small commercial. I would consider that like our smallest option, right? Cool. Okay, so compared to the competition, right? We win on a lot of fronts. When you look at capacity, right? Just in a single form factor, we can go up to 38 kilowatt hours, where the other competitors are more around at max 13. Power, this is where we really win. We are at a 14.4 kilowatt continuous discharge, where even Enphase is 3.84. So we're 5 times Enphase. And the new Tesla, I think, is not 5 anymore. It's 11.3. Is that right? Or something around there. So they're approaching us, but they're not there yet. So we still trump them on power. And then scalability, the ability to go up to 576 kilowatt hours, more than half a megawatt hour is impressive. Yeah, so there's just some numbers for you. You guys have any questions on any of that? Okay, cool. This is just versus Tesla and Enphase. Let's skip this one. And this is just about longevity and safety with LFP. We'll skip that one as well. Okay, let's jump into the products. So go to the next slide. The first one I want to touch on is our outdoor case. So our outdoor case, we just released it. We realize in Florida, like Will was saying, a lot of people don't have room in their garage. And so you guys are, in this type of climate, you're able to put the battery outside, and temperature, if you put it in the shade, temperature is moderate, right, for a battery. So I feel comfortable with you guys putting this outside in Miami with our outdoor case, as long as you guys put it in the shade. And our warranty will back that. If you guys put it in direct sunlight and it's baking in the sun, we would not warranty that. So just know that. It is a fully outdoor rated, weatherproof, UV resistant, hurricane resistant case. As long as you install it right, we've really put this thing through the ringer. One thing to understand is it fits 2 to 4 modules. So at the moment, we don't have the one that fits an 8 stack. So if you wanted to do more than 4 modules, you'd do 2 of them in parallel next to each other. Okay. Keep going. If you guys have an application that you need the heated modules in Miami, I'm very curious about it. Let me know. But I don't think you guys would, right? So let's skip that one. Okay, this is the high voltage BMS. As I talked to you earlier, the low voltage BMS, this one, works with 48 volt inverters, right? So what we needed to do was release a high voltage version of this that would step up the voltage to work with a 30K and a 60K. One of the things that's neat about this is with most high voltage batteries, you have to stack the modules in series to achieve a voltage. But with our battery, you can do your modules to your heart's desire, and the BMS just has a DC to DC converter that steps up the voltage to whatever you need it to be. So you don't have to have a certain number of modules in parallel or in series to voltage. It's just whatever you need. This will work with the Solus inverters. They're 11.4 kilowatt hybrid inverter here in the middle of this year. It will also work with the Solarc 30K. And then we're working on getting this to work with the Solarc 60K. But right now, we haven't figured out the communication yet. So right now, like this is in UL development. It's not released yet, but we should have it next month, is what I heard. So if you guys had a project right now with this and a 30K Solarc, we could quote it, we could build it, we could design it, we could price it. Just know that we don't have it right now, but we would next month. So, okay. Any questions on any of that? Makes sense? Not like weird and confusing? Okay, cool. All right, so now jumping into this HomeGrid Cube. Many of you guys have probably seen this. I know some of you have quoted it before. It is I would say, consider it more of like a small commercial, large residential application. So here's the specs, here's the numbers. The voltage that we can do with this is, depending on your Solarcs that you use, 120, 240, or 208 volt. Like I said, the 60K, we're still working on that. So 480 volt is pending. We can't do it right now, but we can do 208 volt. The capacity up to 153.6 kilowatt hours. We do that by, if you go to the next slide actually, we do that by doing 8 modules of 4 stacked. So you can't see it, but there's 2 more behind that, right? We have 4 of those bad boys in there, all in parallel, and then feeding out to, go back to the last slide that we're just on, the Solarcs that are on the outside mounted on there. You can parallel up to 2 of them. Actually, if you go 2 slides forward, thanks, Casey. You can do 2 of them in parallel, so we could get up to 307.2 kilowatt hours if you guys need it. And sorry, yeah, thank you. The output up to 45 kilowatts continuous. In that case, we would have 3 Solarc 15Ks. We could also just do 1 30K. And then we can surge up to 72 kilowatts. The value props, I'll say this. I think I would venture to say it's pretty plug and play. Like it's one of those commercial solutions where you kind of drop it on site. We're gonna basically build most of that in Vegas for you. All you have to do is drop the batteries in. So in Vegas at our warehouse, before we even ship it, we'll put the Solarcs on there. We'll wire, we configure it, and that way when it gets to the site and you drop it on the cement pad, it's just put the batteries in, hook it up, and then you're good to go. So it's also a niche product, I would say. 208 volt is a hard niche for a lot of people to hit, and we can do that. It's customizable. There's dozens of configurations, right? Like you could do 4 stacks of 6 and then leave room to upgrade, right? Like you could do whatever you wanted on the kilowatt hours, and you could do whatever you wanted on the inverters, pretty much, right? Like it's up to you. And then it's upgradable down the road too for your clients as well. Okay, let's keep going. Thank you. There's actually a video here just so you guys can see kind of what it looks like in person. We have like 13 of these in Vegas right now. It's a 2-week lead time. If you give us notice, we'll build it and then put this, and then you guys can we'll ship it without the batteries, and then you guys can put those in on site. Yeah, it's pretty much all wired for you, so you guys don't have to do a ton of work. It does have heating and cooling, so those are actually air conditioners. And then this is your.
Like I attempted to tell you what to do and how to do it, but I'm holding myself back. So you could just work. The overview is make it fucking
Right.
happen.
With those air conditioners, we can put it directly in the sun. Yeah.
Bro, listen, we're installing a PV
Yeah.
system, right? I'm gonna have you help me with this shit right now, right? As soon as I get a moment, we're gonna get it in, put it in place, all that. I don't want you to worry about that. The PV
Yeah.
system, get the things up there. Measure.
Yes. The Solarks. The one thing with the Solark is that they say it's, and it is, outdoor rated, but the screen, if it's in the sun, will just, what do you call that? It'll basically like, it'll become washed out. You guys know what I mean? It's like the touch screen, right? And so you can buy from Solark, or at least maybe they have someone they refer to, but like a covering that goes over the screen. So I would do that, but that's probably the only thing I would add, is that some protection over the screen of the Solark. But other than that, it's good to be outside. Yeah, in the sun and all that. Okay, so our warranty on the Stack series and with the Cube, all of that included, basically the way we do it is we warranty each module individually. So each of these guys has its own warranty, because a lot of folks will upsell down the road. Like, I have a client in Atlanta who sells like 2 or 3 of these a month, and he always sells like 4 modules or 3. And then like a year later, or even 6 months later, when that customer gets like their bonus or whatever, they'll say, hey, I want more modules, and he'll put more modules on. The customer then has new warranties on each of those modules. So just understand that that's how we look at it. Each of those modules, we do 10 years or 14.11 megawatt hours of throughput. So we don't do cycles, even though you could probably equate that to around 4,000 cycles. It's more of like a better way of tracking it. We just look at total throughput. But it's a very competitive warranty. I realize a lot of folks, like Will was saying, are coming out with 15-year warranties now. And like I was saying earlier, if you treat this battery right, it'll last 15 to 20 years. We're really confident in that. So I'm pushing on my end for us to get to 15, but not yet. Okay. On our website, we have sales and training options for you. There's if you go actually to the next slide, I think I have it here. Yeah, there's a sizing tool on our website. So for residential installs, even commercial, you could basically plug in kilowatt hours per month of usage, call it 2,000 or 1,000. It'll spit out an off-grid, partial offset, and emergency backup recommendation. Not perfect, but it will ballpark you in the right space. Cool. Okay, so sales summary, and then we're done with this first half. Full home backup, modular, best-in-class chemistry, simple install, USA made, soon USA assembled, and then full service from the USA. Any questions on any of all that? Pretty straightforward, I guess. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So you guys are halfway certified. Good job. Thanks for being here. Yeah, let's keep going. Is there any questions on the chat? It's actually
No,
okay. By the way, hello everybody who's there and out in the universe. Thanks for being on here. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Put in the chat if you're having any issues. Okay. So now head into the install training. We'll run through this. It's fairly simple, but I just want to go through the details here. So let's keep going. Okay, let's stop here. So there is a YouTube series of a single stack installation and a parallel stack. So if you guys are doing the Cube, if you guys are doing a residential install, I recommend you guys watch these videos and understand how they come together. You can watch them on site. You can watch them before you go. Just train yourself up. This is what I'll run through just in the slides. So keep going. Let's go. Just click on it and then press the. You're good. Okay, yeah, we'll skip this and this. I mean, let's just get right to it. So when you're unboxing the system, like I said, this part and this part come in one box. So that's what we call our BMS and base SKU. It's like $1,500 for the BMS and base. And then each module is around like $1,900 or whatever Green Tech quotes you at. They come in their own box. So when you unbox it, you're going to find a lot of different things. Just so you know, we include some comms cables between this and the Solarc. We include that, about 6 feet long. We also include just different components if you want to like mount it to the ground. There's different like bars and screws. You can just verify you have everything, but there's different components you're going to see in here when you open it up for the first time. And Will, if you have any thoughts on any of this, like chime in with your experience.
One of the things that had a little bit of a challenge finding
Yeah.
was the for the one-off gauge cable, the little coupling, whatever you call that piece that goes on the solar.
Yes. Yeah.
That metal piece.
Yeah.
Like the wire.
Yeah.
That was a little hard.
Okay, but it was in there. You found it eventually. We did have it in.
On Amazon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I don't know if that's something that you guys are now including packaging.
Yeah.
I know it requires two.
Right. Right. Yeah. There's we include one side of it, but the other side is not included. So yeah. Yeah, we include the battery side. So what Will's referring to is, and order that from Amazon. Yeah. So what Will's referring to is on the battery cables, there's lugs that connect right here to the landings. And we include the two for the battery, but there's lugs that need to be included for the Solarc. And so having those before the install would be necessary. And you've done this before too. So if you have any thoughts, chime in, Marlon. Okay, let's keep going. So we could do it right now, but I'll save you time and just tell you about it. We place the base stand down, choose a spot that you're not going to have to move it because it's going to start to get heavy. You're going to stack the module. After you stack the first module, take the side panel off. Take the right side panel off. You don't have to take the left side panel off unless you're wanting to connect them and secure them together, which is not necessary except in California. I'll show you that in a minute. All you guys need to do is take off the right side panel. When that's off, stack the next module, take off the panel, stack the next module, take off the panel. I'm not sure if these are screwed in or not. I guess they are, but you guys can see. I'll just even walk around and show you. Basically, you can see inside there, there's the dip switches. So you'll open that up and you'll have access to a power switch and dip switches. You guys have seen it before and understand, but you'll need access to that to configure the battery. So once you've got it all stacked up, once you've got it all stacked up and the batteries are to their desired height, put the BMS on, and then go to the next slide for me, if you would. You're going to go into the side panel, and you're going to adjust the dip switches on the battery. So you can see here, there's some dip switches 1 through 6. You're going to number those according to the module's position in the stack. This is in our manual, but for reference, you can take a picture of it. It's binary. So the top module, you're going to have the first dip switch up, and then so on down until 8. So if you just had 4 modules, it'd be 1 through 4. That basically tells the BMS where the module is in the height or in the stack. Once that's done, you're going to want to adjust the dip switches on the BMS. So the BMS has some dip switches here on the side as well. Under this side panel, you're going to want to flip all the red dip switches up. What that does is it puts it in detection mode. So it's basically telling the BMS, we're looking for how many modules. And then the blue dip switches, the first one's up, and then the last set of dip switches, all of them are down. So go to the next slide for me, Casey. Now we're going to turn the modules on. So at this point, nothing's on yet. We haven't flipped an on switch for anything. This is really important. It's kind of like a tip and trick for you guys. You have to turn the modules on from top or bottom to top. So you start with the bottom module, turn it on, make sure there's a green light, and then the next one until you get to the very top, and then turn the BMS on. When you turn that BMS on, it's going to detect how many modules are in the stack because it's in detection mode. And it will flash that number. Might take a minute, so just give it a second. But in this case, it would flash 3, right? So once that's done and you've got the right number, go to the next slide. We can flip these inverter set dip switches according to the inverter you're working with. So they were, remember, they were all up. Now we can just flip them according to the inverter you're working with. So with SolArc, the BMS, tell it that we're working with a SolArc, you have to do 1, 3, and 4 up, and the rest are down. Okay. So that's kind of just the dip switches that you need to understand. It's just that. It's not too complex. But I do want to just touch on parallel installs. How do we do that? So I know you guys won't remember this, but just to give you an idea of how this works, if we were to go to the next slide, you're going to connect each module or each BMS to each other with a comms cable. And this comes included with each BMS. We include an extra comms cable. It's about 6 feet long. You're going to connect basically the comms cable from link A to link B, to link A to link B, and so on. And then once that's done, go to the next slide. We're going to set the address set of the BMSs according to their stack in parallel. So you know how we set the modules, right? Like to their position in the stack. Now we're going to set the dip switches according to this is number 1, this is number 2, this is number 3, this is number 4. And you do that on the blue dip switches. So binary as well. Here's the code. It's the same as the modules. So once that's done, go to the next slide. We can basically, let's see what this part is. Okay. So this is just on the inverter set for all the, I don't want to call them slave batteries. That's like old terminology that we still have in here. We call them like, let's call them dependent BMSs. We're going to set them the first dip switch up, the rest are down. And then on the master BMS, we're going to set the first dip switch down and the rest are up. Once that's done, go to the next slide. We can power up the parallel stacks. And the way that you do this, just so you guys know, and again, you're not going to remember this, but just in case you do, you're going to turn the power button of the BMS on, starting with the furthest paralleled system. So let's say this was the master BMS. You're going to head all the way down to the last one. You're going to turn that one on. You're going to wait 30 seconds. Then you're going to go to the next one, turn that one on, wait 30 seconds. Go to the next one, turn that one on, wait 30 seconds. And then you're going to head to the last one. After about what can take up to 3 minutes, the BMS on the master battery is going to flash the number that's in parallel. So if you had 8 systems, it's going to flash 8. So it's basically in like detection mode, but this time for batteries in parallel. Okay, so that's just an idea. I know you guys aren't going to remember that, but that's how you put these systems in parallel. Now, just going back to just a normal install, right? If we're attaching our battery cables, I want to just give you some tips and tricks on how that's done. And Will, I know you've done this before. If there's anything you want to add to this, same with you, Marlon. Like, I'll give you my tips and tricks. First of all, we require that you guys use 4-aught. I know it's kind of a pain to work with, but 4-aught is the only cable that can handle our amperage. So we need to use 4-aught cable, and you can source that from Green Tech. They'll have it. We include, these are what Will were referring to, we include 2 of these lugs that you guys will crimp on. The other 2, though, for the SolArc side, on the other side of this, are not included. So you'll need to source those on your own, or you can get them on Amazon for like, I don't know, what were they like, how much? Yeah. Okay, so they're pretty cheap, but make sure you have those. That's right. Yeah, exactly. Yep. So this power coming through is DC, right? And it's going up to the inverter. Additionally, this is coming to the inverter. We also have a comms cable coming to the inverter. So you guys do need to understand that if you're working with a SolArc, the comms cable that we include is pre-wired for a SolArc inverter. So if you guys were to use your own comms cable, it wouldn't connect. It wouldn't communicate. like it should. So you can pin out your own if you have maybe you have more than 6 feet and you need to create your own comms cable. You can do that on your own, and we can help you. But just understand that. And then there's also an antenna for Wi-Fi. So you're going to attach that to this little gold Wi-Fi port, and you're going to stack that antenna on top of the battery. We have an app that connects to our batteries that allows you and us to monitor them and see them, from Vegas, or you can watch all your installs like a fleet management style. Okay. Oh, last thing I'll say, go back to that actually, is I want to point this out. This is a weird little tip and trick, but the positive cable, you'll land on top of these bus bars on the positive side, and the negative cable, you'll land on the bottom of this bus bar. If you do it on top, it just won't, this side panel won't go on right. So just make sure you do that. Okay. All right, so just some optional install features. You can bolt the base stand to the ground. There's holes right here in the bottom if you want to do that. You can also wall mount it like a nightstand, right? Where you can connect it to the wall if you want to secure it. Obviously, it's not putting it up on the wall, but just connecting it to the wall. And then you can also attach fixing brackets on the side of the modules to connect them. You don't have to do this in Florida, but in California, you do with earthquakes. It's up to you. If you want to, you have to remove the other side panel, or this side is what it would be to do that. So, yeah.
The question is, how do you attach those? Because once you install it, somebody's claiming on that. The battery gonna fall down and then move. I mean, how do you ensure that it's attached?
Yeah, I mean that's one way if you want to insure and they're worried about it. The reason I say you don't have to is just from our experience, it's just so heavy that like there's no way they're gonna fall. Yeah. Like if you tried to move it that way, yeah, you can only do it that way. Yeah. Good question. Thank you. Okay. So just a little bit on our app. Have you connected the system to the app yet? Okay. So I figured like this is kind of new. Basically, our old BMS, you guys won't get this, but our old BMS that we used to distribute didn't have Wi-Fi attached to it. But now this BMS does, and so we can connect it to an app. And basically all you guys need to know is you just need to call our tech support team. You need to call in and they'll create an account for you. And it's just like an iPhone app. And when you're on site, you can just connect it to the app. So it's part of the commissioning process. Just understand that. Okay. All right. After all that's done, we attach the side panels, ensure proper wire management. You guys do need to understand this is pretty common. We'll use like a gutter cable box between the solar arc and the battery like this, typically to just keep the wires together. And there's a lot of options. People do these all the time. So just ask your green tech what they recommend and they can help you. If you guys have any questions, ask us. Did you guys do a gutter box as well? Okay. Did you just get that from green tech and all the pieces? And cool.
That you have to do that only in the first season, because the second one connect them with a 16 wire, you say no.
Yeah.
So that connection is only in the first one.
Yeah.
Just communication. Then you have to do the electrical connection. So you need to bring the electrical wires as well to the door.
Yeah. And I have yes, and I'll show you what that looks like. I have a slide on it. Yeah. Okay, let's go actually. Okay, I'll get to that. But just so you guys understand, after the install on the Solarc, you can adjust all the settings, right? You can do time of use. The Solarc is like a computer. So you can adjust it to, and you can do this remotely too, through PV Pro. You can adjust the settings. One of the settings that I recommend in the first week is to cycle the battery. Cycle it like 3 to 5 times, because If you don't, sometimes it'll show an inaccurate state of charge and state of health because it hasn't calibrated. But if you run it, it'll calibrate, and after the first week, it'll show accurate numbers. It's not all the time that it shows inaccurate numbers, but it's just a good rule of thumb. So I recommend doing that. Okay. So additional details, I just want to touch on, if you're using the Solarc 15K, they have, okay, you guys can see this, right? You see how it has 2 negative and 2 positive landings for the battery cables? So without the bus bars, how would you bring the positive and negative up? You'd have to choose 1 negative and 1 positive, right? The problem is if you do that with Solarc, it limits the output to like half its capability to charge and discharge the battery. This weird little niche. So HomeGrid, it's weird. HomeGrid sells these bus bars. Solarc doesn't. We sell them. We have them here in stock. Every time you order a 15K, buy a pair of these bus bars, attach them on the battery landings, and you won't have to choose one or the other. You can use both of those landings. Does that make sense? Okay. So just, your green tech rep will know, like if you order a Solarc 15K with HomeGrid, always have these bus bars. Okay. They're like 40 bucks, 50 bucks, I don't know. Okay. So this is your question, I think, right? If we had multiple stacks, how would we connect them in parallel up to the inverter? And the answer to that question is we use common bus bars. And we set them up in like a junction box basically between, and we put 1 negative, 1 positive, and we basically just treat it as like one giant system in parallel. We just connect the batteries together via those common bus bars. One thing to note is those common bus bars need to be rated correctly for the amperage that's going to pass through, right? So if we had, so many Solarcs, let's say you're doing Solarc 15Ks. This is my way of calculating it. If you had 2 15Ks, each of them can charge and discharge at 300 amps. So in this case, you would need 2 of them 600 amp rated bus bars. So this one would need to be rated for 600 amps, and this one would need to be rated for 600 amps. Green Tech carries bus bars. I also have recommendations. There's a brand called Blue Sea Systems. They're based here in Florida, I believe, and they sell options for these bus bars. So, any questions on any of that? So just so you know too, the batteries are connected via comms cables, right? And then the master battery is connected to the master Solarc via a comms cable. Okay. We also, just so you guys know, if you're doing HomeGrid Solarc, there's a lot of settings in the Solarc, and we provide, if you want, a PDF that has all the settings for the Solarc. So you can just get that from us, and you don't have to think about it. You can just make sure you ask me for it, and I'll give it to you. It just has all the settings, recommended settings. So, okay. If you're making your own comms cable from the Solarc to the battery, like I said, it's pre-wired, the one that we include. If you're making your own, because it's longer distance, you need to pre-wire it or adjust the pin out. So this is the guide, roughly. But call me, call us if you need help. I can help you get that done. Okay. All right, so this, like I was saying, there's an old version of the BMS that doesn't have Wi-Fi. There's probably, you guys won't get them brand new from Green Tech, but if you run into it in the field, it does need a skybox. Did you guys have to do a skybox on yours? Okay, so you had a Gen 3 then. So you're good. You could connect that to Wi-Fi. But if you had a Gen 2, there's this little skybox thing. You can see it right there. It helps it connect to Wi-Fi and the whole ordeal. I'm just glad you guys don't have to deal with it anymore. Okay. So state of charge parameters. Basically, what you guys need to know is I just wouldn't ever let the battery get down to 0 if you can help it. And you can set that into Solarc. The way that you do that is you just set the depth of discharge to like lowest, like 10 or 15%. Don't ever let it be at 0 for over 12 hours. If it does get down to 0, that's fine. Just don't let it sit there for 12 hours at 0%. Modules can be at 0 for up to 12 hours. Then they need to be charged to at least 5% for at least 12 hours. And then at 10% state of charge and above, it doesn't matter how long the modules are at rest. Just keep them at least 10%. So, okay, let's keep going. We have warranties, firmware tools. there's situations, guys, where like worst case scenario, our tech support team is going to have to, work with you on updating the battery manually. With our app, we can push updates through Wi-Fi now, but just so you understand, if there's a worst case scenario, sometimes we'll have to send you guys some special cables and you'll have to update this via like a desktop computer, a laptop. That shouldn't happen, but just worst case scenario, things like that we can work through, and we can train you guys and send you what you need to do that. And this is their phone number, so just that phone number right there, and that's their email. They're super quick. If you call them and they don't answer, they always call back within the hour. So, and if you guys can't get through and you're in an emergency, just call me, and I'll just get you right in. So. Yeah.
You guys just walking through that, or somebody else physically go there and get that?
Yeah. So if it's a matter of like just flipping some dip switches to adjust something and the homeowner's comfortable, we'll walk the homeowner through it. Yeah. But if it's more involved and it requires like messing with the electrical, or it's like just the solar settings, right? Like we can adjust that with the homeowner, but yeah, preferably we like to work with you as the installer, but if we need to, we can walk a homeowner through it.
That's one of the
Yeah.
It's not a whole bunch of wiring.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Not a whole bunch of setup.
Yeah.
So that's one of my.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
That you mentioned that.
Cool. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Hope that answers your question. Cool. Okay. All right. So you guys, at this point, just so you know, and those who attended on the certification webinar, you are officially certified. At this point, those who are on the webinar, you guys are good to leave, and I just want to say thank you for coming on. I'll reach out to each of you individually after this is over. Right now, we're going to end the webinar, and then we'll do a little competition in here virtually, or in person rather. But thanks for coming on. So you can end those.